Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I have great pleasure in introducing our last speaker, Bogdan Gogulan from Russia, who is part of the American Express Leadership Program. And he studied here in England, in Essex, where he studied economics. And I admire him as being someone who likes to take his faith into the difficult parts of the workplace. Give a warm welcome to Bogdan.
Councillors, delegates, good afternoon. You probably noticed that I'm one of the oldest delegates here, but at the same time, my biography is actually the shortest. So that just highlights how extraordinary all of you are and how extraordinarily lucky I am that I can contribute to discussion that you take. Well, you've heard that I'm Russian, but I actually spent the majority of my life living in Estonia. It's a small northern European country. And the majority of Russians are followers of the Russian Orthodox Church, but Estonia is a Lutheran country of the Lutheran faith. Somehow my family and myself happen to be Catholics. So I witnessed different religions and how they affect social processes, political processes, and I witnessed frictions between different religions since young age. But it really became very personal, and it really became a big part of my life. At the moment I happened to fall in love and marry a Muslim woman. And it became even more personal when we had our first child. When my son was born, my wife and I, we decided that we want both. We want to baptize him as well to give him a Muslim blessing. So I went to my priest and I asked him whether he can christen our boy, and he said no. And his words were, "How do you expect a Christian child to be raised by a Muslim woman?" It wasn't in the Middle East, it wasn't in Afghanistan or any other war zone. It was a quiet corner of Europe. The proposed One Young World resolution calls upon religious leaders and followers of different faiths to denounce violence, and therefore I feel compelled to support that resolution. At the same time, I think we must acknowledge that only a minority of people use religion to justify violence. However, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's just an indication of much bigger problem that lies underneath. The fact that the majority of us have hidden and sometimes subconscious suspicion and animosity towards followers of another faith. It's determined by centuries of religious wars. It's determined by our history. However, we must make a conscious decision and we must make a conscious effort to overcome it by learning and understanding other religions and learn to appreciate them. And I believe that heads of world and local religions must provide both the spiritual and organizational leadership in making it happen. And history has a great example of how that's been done in the past in other areas of our life. The end of the Cold War started when the United States president and the Soviet president, Mr. Reagan and Mr. Gorbachev, and they got together to discuss something that was on the top of their agenda, and at the time it was nuclear threat. And when the world and two nations, when they were looking at both leaders shaking hands for the first time, making common statement for the first time, sitting next to one another, having their wives nearby, it really sent a message to both nations that we can be friends despite years of acrimony. And I believe religious leaders should take that as an example. They must create a forum. They can show the unity. They can set an example that what should underline our relationship is what unites us, not what sets us apart. There are many great gatherings for the political leaders to share their thoughts on challenges that face their countries and face the world. United Nations, G8, G20. However, we don't have a forum, world forum, for religious leaders to come together. At the same time, if we get together the leaders of different states, that room is not going to be enough. and each of them command very limited power. If we're going to get into one room with religious leaders, it's going to be just a handful of people which have the authority over how we interpret something that guides the lives of over 3 billion people on this planet. 94 to 98% of us believe in God, and the majority of us practice that faith within the frame of organized religion. So therefore, I believe that we should extend the resolution, and we must call upon religious leaders to create World Religious Forum to promote causes and values common to all faiths. Many days after Haitian earthquake, when chances for survival were absolutely non-existent, rescue workers found an old man, and they rescued him from under the rubble. When he was asked, "How did you survive?" he said, "I prayed." How many of us care which God he prayed? Have a good day.